do this the next time you're talking to somebody that's going through something. You will see them thinking about the elephant in the room, and you know that they're thinking about the elephant in the room, and they'll start by saying something about it, and then they'll try to deviate from what they were going to say.
Hey friends, welcome to the Marketing as Missions podcast, where today we're going to be talking about
caring for hurting people.
Yes.
Big, loaded topic. I think we're going to say that probably every episode because the topics we ended up choosing, at least for the first couple, are
big, loaded topics.
But, hey, it is what it is. Again, marketing is missions. This is not about being salesmen for our faith. This is not about selling Jesus. No. This is just practicing sharing our stories of faith with you so that hopefully you can be encouraged to share your stories of God's faithfulness in your life with others.
So what do we mean by hurting people?
Well, I think what we can mean by hurting people is everyone. But I think more specifically for this episode, it's more of people around you that are going through something. Like our last episode, we talked about our own church hurt and maybe church hurt that's happening to you. But we want to kind of go the other direction now. And there are people hurting all across the world. And some in your house, some in your community, some in your church. How do you best help people that are hurting in your life?
Well, and by hurting, we mean it could be someone grieving. It could be someone going through a hard time with sickness or cancer, or it could
kid or work.
Yep, or job situations that are hard, or financial struggles. Mm-hmm. So people who, it may not show on the outside that they're hurting, but inside they're deeply hurting.
Yep.
And a lot of times, as we said in our last podcast, hurting people can hurt people. Mm-hmm. And so it might be the people that are hurting you that might need to be helped.
Yep. And remember, every hurt is different, but hurts all the same. Like, we can have different stories. Mandy and I have gone through different things in our life that we've been hurt by, but at the end of the day, it still hurt us. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes as we go through this, I'm like, I wish we had a better word than just hurt, because it is so generic, but I like it being open at the same time, because it truly does encapsulate a lot of things. And so let's just keep it open.
Yeah. I think in our time as youth pastor and wife, mm-hmm. and even our times as youth leaders in other churches, we had a lot of families go through very tragic things, or very hard, difficult deaths in their families. And I think that's one of the things that sticks out the most to me when you talk about hurting people. I think about those families that have to go through the death of a loved one, and it being so out of the blue.
Yep.
Something that just came up and was not expected. There's always like people who know that they're sick and they're going through stuff, and that hurts, right? It still hurts. And then you have the out of the blue car accidents, or fires, or earthquakes, tornadoes, like whatever. You have those things that can happen that you don't plan on, and it just rocks that family and those kids in ways that they never would have even thought or expected in that time.
Well, and a lot of those situations that you described, and I think we'll get to this kind of more of a practical situation a little bit later, but those type of situations can end up becoming somebody's identity. And that is so incredibly more difficult to work through and walk through with somebody. Because it's not just this period of processed grief or processed feelings and hurt that, no, it's something that happened to somebody that has made an incredible, deep, immediate, tragic impact on their life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that when other people look at them, they can only be, oh, that's the person who lost such and such at 5 due to whatever was the ailment. Or, oh, that's the family that lost their house in a fire and has never financially recovered. Or those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime that you have something so extreme happen to you, one of the biggest hardships, other than recovering from the actual event, is trying to live a life where that's not your true actual identity.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so difficult to overcome because in reality it's a very big part of your life. It is part of what God has used to put in your story, but it doesn't have to be your identity.
Yeah.
But getting to that point is, I don't think you ever get to a point where you're ever not thinking it's part of your identity because it's always a part of you. But practicing the way to just allow it not to be your entire identity is a difficult process. And we just want to be able to recognize that here.
Yeah.
And say it's not easy. There's no system or 12-step guide to get there. It's true hard discipleship.
Well, and part of that is when you're working through your own life and you're working through those things as a
Yep.
hurting, grieving person, you will reach a point where obviously it's still part of you. Obviously you're still going to have that as part of you, but you're going to be at the point where you don't want people looking at you and going, oh, that poor so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's poor so-and-so. It's like, no, I am Mandy, and yes, I went through something that hurt and I was grieving, but I'm working through this, and God has shown his grace and God has shown his mercy, and I'm doing something with my life.
Yep.
And they'll see that, and they won't be like, oh, that's so-and-so who did blah, blah, blah. They'll say, no, look at what they're doing. I'm so proud of them. I'm like, God has really been working in their life,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll see that difference.
Yep.
Just by knowing that you're working through these things. And I've gone through a lot of different hurts.
Mm-hmm.
with miscarriages and different things that I've had to work through personally.
Yep.
That some people didn't even know about. And when I was going through our first 2 miscarriages, I was probably in my lowest part of not probably a depression, but I wasn't like full out depressed, if you know what I mean. And I heard that grief is kind of like a box with a button inside of it. And at the beginning the box is small, and so the button gets hit a lot, and then as you get bigger, the time goes on, your box gets bigger, there's still a ball in there going around, and it might hit the button and it'll hit you out of the blue, and you're just going to have all of those emotions again, but it's going to be less and less frequent as time goes on. And it's different for everyone. Some person's box can stay little a lot longer. Some people's boxes get a lot bigger and can find it easier to cope. But no matter how big your box is or how little your box is, you're still going to be hitting those emotions. And so making sure that you have ways to work through the grief and work through the hurt and work through all of the other emotions that come with it is definitely a key impact on how to make sure that you're not staying where you are at, and making sure you're not burying yourself underneath all of the grief and the hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. So in different cases, and we'll kind of both answer this question, but one of the questions I thought of when we were working through this is, how do we not necessarily always just focus on the hurt part of it or the people part of it, but ways that you can actually practically encourage people or be alongside of them, but it not be as awkward, right? I mean, so like, let's be real. If something big happens to somebody and you, like Mandy said, oh, that's that person that this happened to, how do you not try to talk about that with them if that's the only real thing that you know about them? How do you not make that awkward? Especially if they're still living and maybe it was a tragic accident, but their life was spared, but their life is completely different now and they're on 4 wheels in a wheelchair rather than walking around talking to you. How do you have those conversations? So in your life, dealing with a bunch of things, both personally and with others, what are some practical ways that you have tried to show care or you found care, practical ways to care for people that have worked for you?
I think one of the biggest ways is just sitting and being with them. And
get a good chair.
big, nice, comfy chair. No. I think a lot of times hurting people, grieving people just need someone to be with them, but maybe not speaking into their life.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just need someone to be there, to have another person. Sometimes it's just the physical presence that is needed, to know they're not alone, to know that they're not going through it alone, because sometimes that can be the worst thing, is when they feel alone. Then those emotions can build bigger and it's harder to come out of.
Yep.
And sometimes, shockingly, sometimes people don't want you to fix their problems.
What?
Sometimes people just want you to hear.
I'm appalled by that statement as a guy.
I know, Jeffrey. I'm telling you, there's sometimes I just want you to listen. I'm just kidding. You do a great job of listening. But
you can't be Bob the Builder all the time.
It's true. You can't always fix it. But you can sit. You can listen.
Mm-hmm.
You can be an understanding ear.
Mm. Well, that brings me back. It's humorous in this sense, where in college we had a conference ministry that I counseled at for a couple years. And each counselor took one day out of the week in their afternoon free time, and we had our MOP time, M-O-P, and I thought it was the silliest thing, because it was an acrostic for Ministry of Presence, which at the time, that is not what you wanted to do. Like, literally, you were the babysitter of a certain area, and you were just the authority in charge of a location during your free time. But the whole concept was, if somebody, like a counselor or a person of authority, is placed in an area specifically and they're just present, it's going to open the door for a couple of things. Number one, it's statistically proven to lower the chances of any of like silly, dumb, stupid teenage kid thing to happen, right? Whether it's walking off, goofing off, people getting hurt, people getting in fights, silly arguments, stuff like that.
Lessens stupidity.
Yes, it lessens a lot of the stupidity that happens in those teenage years just by being present and seen. And the second thing at this conference that we were at was essentially, it was opening the doors for organic opportunities to watch an area, obviously for behavior, but also at the same time for people who might be pondering different things, might be thinking about different things, and opening that door for organic conversation so that you were just primed and ready to be in a position to do exactly what Mandy just said and listen. And just sit, and your job that afternoon was to sit and just be present. And man, when I was in college and I was doing that, I thought that was like the silliest thing. I didn't think it was stupid because I understood the reasoning behind it, but it was just silly to me. Like, oh my word, how is that? Man, after being a youth pastor and in different churches and even being a marketing manager, your presence, especially if you have a calming presence or you have a presence that people seek out, that makes a world of difference, just being present. And now as a father, and even for you as a mom, what are our kids always just asking for? Even though they have it all day, every day. Mama, Dada, can you watch me play?
Watch me.
Can you just be in the room while I'm doing something? Just our presence.
Well, because they, Mommy, Daddy, play with me. Okay, what do you want me to do? Well, I just want you to watch me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Okay. But just our presence makes all the difference in the world. And if our 5 and our 3-year-old have figured that out, I think we all should learn from that.
Mm. Yeah, that's really good. I think another thing that I think about when you're with someone is sometimes they do want to talk, though.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't usually want to talk about the elephant in the room.
Exactly.
So now you have to figure out, how do I have a conversation with someone who is grieving or hurting and doesn't want to talk about the big elephant that's in the room, and how do you not make it awkward? Because let me tell you, it would be a whole lot of awkward turtle.
Yeah.
Like, a whole lot of awkward turtle.
Especially, it'd be real awkward turtle if you made it just completely obvious and you had no tact about it too, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, I brought you over for dinner tonight. I'm going to feed you and we're going to talk about your mom's death.
What? Let's not.
Peace out. Don't care how good the tacos are on Tuesday. I'm out of here.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing that I can say to help with things not being awkward is ask them questions about themselves.
Yes. 100.
What's your favorite color? What kind of shows are you watching right now? What's your favorite book? Where do you, like, you could either say, like, if it's an older person, where did you go to college? Or what, do you have any plans that you're wanting to do? What was your favorite vacation you ever went on? Things like that. To start them talking. And then if they are not in a very chatty mood, but they give you a little bit, then you could go, oh, your favorite color is green? I love green too, because I like it when it freshens my house and makes it look like there's greenery. Or you could say, oh, that's a great vacation. Mm-hmm. That's somewhere that I've always wanted to go. I went to blah, 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 and it was so great, but I don't know, maybe we're looking for somewhere else. Where else would you want to go on vacation? Mm-hmm. Try to, like, get them talking. Try to stay away from yes and no answers, because that'll cut down a conversation real quick. Real quick.
And the other thing with that is when you start asking them questions about their life, especially if the elephant in the room is a lost loved one, getting them to answer questions about their life, if you're in tune and you're doing your job of listening and you're actively listening, you will see them think. Like, do this the next time you're talking to somebody that's going through something. You will see them thinking about the elephant in the room, and you know that they're thinking about the elephant in the room, and they'll start by saying something about it, and then they'll try to deviate from what they were going to say. And that's when you can just be like, oh, what were you going to say about that? And they may sheepishly be like, well, maybe my mom's favorite place to go was on a cruise ship, but we didn't have, the heart to go on a cruise, so we just went to the beach. But we went to our favorite port city that had a beach, and things like that will stir memories up. Now, I'm not saying stir memories up on purpose so that they have to relive things. I'm not saying that. But as you start getting them to talk about their life, their experiences, loved ones are going to come into the picture at some point. Mm-hmm. And a good way to not make it awkward and not just bring it up, but be able to have a healing, listening presence in the room is just by letting them talk. Mm-hmm. Like Mandy said about themselves, but also when that elephant in the room does go, oh, there it is.
You don't point it out. You don't go, oh, there it is. You talk about
That's what I was looking for. No.
Boom, I got you to talk. Like,
gently hand it out like you're serving them a batch of grandma's homemade cookies. Yeah. And say, hey, what was that? And if not, that's totally fine. I don't want to intrude on your thoughts.
If they do bring it up, acknowledge that and say, oh, that's so great. I'm sure that it's really hard for you. Or acknowledge that they're probably going through pain or grief, but don't make it all about that.
And then just keep talking about themselves.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. You care about them.
Mm-hmm.
And while their past hurt or tragedy or whatever is a part of their story, again, it's not their identity. Or it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
You care about them. And maybe they're in a job transition or they're looking for something different. And you want to get to that too.
Yeah. And thinking about people who might be going through some sort of sickness or cancer and the outlook is not great, don't dwell on that either.
No.
Make sure that you're cognizant of that, and make sure that you are... Everyone's going to handle things differently.
Yeah.
And some people won't mind talking about it at all. And they might even want to talk about it more just because it's something that's on their mind and they need to get it out. And some people don't want to bring it up at all because they're just not ready to face that fact yet. And so don't push it on people. Make sure that you keep things in a lighthearted and just don't poke the bear.
Yeah.
Make sure that when you're talking to them, and if they want to bring up, their results or the diagnosis, acknowledge, that's hard. And you can even ask them, like, how are you feeling about that? And you can ask them, but it's not a place for you to, push in your agenda or push in your thoughts on the situation, whether you think they need to, take more medicine or, get off the treatment or,
Goodness.
Those are things, obviously they have doctors that they're dealing with, they have family members that they're talking with, but they just might need a third party to just hear them out and to just listen.
Yeah. And I think we've glossed over kind of the main point of caring for hurting people is it's just caring for people.
Yeah.
You can care about people and their hurt is a part of who they are, but you don't have to focus on what is hurting them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying go out and be the life of the party and be crazy and, always happy all the time. People sometimes just need you to soak and sit in their grief with you. But caring for people is just experiencing life with them and walking a mile in their shoes. I know that phrase has been used so much since we were a little kid, and it's been overused in some wrong context, I think, sometimes. But it's truly just going, how would I feel, genuinely, if this was my life?
Mm-hmm. I know with infertility issues, for me, it didn't really make sense until I was going through them myself. And I understood, well, I'll put an example, one that I know I can throw out there. Like, my mom went through a miscarriage before she had me. I understood that she went through a miscarriage my whole life. She talked about it with me. She explained what happened, that I have a sibling in heaven. But I didn't comprehend the hurt and the emptiness that you feel from having that experience until it happened to me. And as someone who has gone through multiple, when I find out that someone has gone through a miscarriage, my heart hurts for them. And it reminds me of what happened to me, and I pray for them in such a different way than when I would hear about it before. I would pray for them and, the family, but you just have a better understanding when it's happened to you. And I think that when you're dealing with people, especially with people or with things that have happened to you, and you're dealing with people that are experiencing the same thing, the hardest part is to not tell them how you did it and how to get over it. And that will come. There will come a time when they'll ask, like, how did you get through this? Or how do I, work through this situation? They'll ask, but it's probably not going to be right when it happens.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a time and a place for explaining your experiences and how you were able to heal through that and work through that. But I think it has to be in a time when they're open to hearing that, and not when it's really fresh and out. Because I think about, when you're a teenager and you think you know everything and you just walk up to someone and be like, I've been through that, like, you'll get through it. And it's like, that is a horrible way to treat someone. I can't believe I did that. Like, bad Mandy. Like, that was not a good thing to do.
Well, and the crazy thing is, you said teenager, but everybody still does that.
That's true.
And, like, it almost feels silly talking about that in one sense, because we've all heard it from wherever, whether it's a book, a pastor, a counselor, a teacher. Like, we've all heard, don't insert your own story like it's somebody else's truth to try to make them feel better. It's not going to. And yet we do it all the time, and I think it's because we're just not prepared in our own hearts for what they're going through. Or we truly, and again, another podcast topic for another day, we haven't sat down and processed our own things to where we're ready to listen, because we're still in fix-it mode in our own life, and the only thing that comes out when you're in fix-it mode in your own life is fix-it mode for everybody else. And that's a problem. You have to be ready. Not perfect, not even excellent, but ready to process the things in your life that are going on and heal from those, or be in a healing process from those, to be ready to listen to somebody else. And if you're that person and they want you to be that listener for them, and you're not ready to be there, do your best, but please shut up.
Stick foot in mouth.
Don't be like me and be like, I understand. No, you don't. One of the biggest things I think I always got in trouble for when I was a kid is, my dad or my mom would say, well, that, or like, do this. I know. And I would always say, I know. And finally, one day my dad's just like, if you know, then just do it.
Well, we're battling that with our kids now.
Yeah, whoops. My kids.
But, I know. No, you don't know. You don't know.
And in caring for people, if you don't know, that's okay. Okay? It's acceptable. That's fine. But don't act like you know. Because the last thing you want to do, well, two things you don't want to do is, number one, you don't want to hurt the person more than they already are about the one thing they're struggling with. The other thing is, and I think this is almost more egregious or worse, you don't want to give them a false hope that you can provide them something that they don't have. And you're setting yourself up and them for failure, and they're the ones that have already in their minds failed. And that's especially true with people coming out of addictions, with people coming out of just maybe
physical
ailments, relational issues, things like that, where you can say something that you think is the most kind thing, and you think you're just being nice, and all of a sudden they're clinging to you now.
Yeah.
Now you've got a problem on your hands, because they're expecting you to be more than you are, and they're not in a healthy position, and you're not ready for that. Now, how do you go about that? I think the biggest thing, and where this all leads to, that might have come out a little harsh for me, and I apologize if it did. But
cool down, Jeff.
The one thing, I'm going now. This is my wheel. Now, where's the soapbox? obviously we have good intentions when we want to do that, right?
Oh, yeah.
We want to be kind. We want to be caring. We don't want to be a Karen. We want to be caring. But how do we actually encourage people in a meaningful way? Like in Proverbs, it says, the person who encourages another is himself encouraged. And we know that encouragement is a big thing in a lot of people's lives. It could look different in everybody's life. But how do you actually encourage people on a daily basis, especially those that are hurting?
Well, it's a little hard because each person's going to be encouraged by a different thing.
Yep.
Like, I think of our kids.
Yeah.
You tell Logan, you say, Logan, you did so great today. I saw you playing with this person and you were so kind and helpful. And he just goes, and it's the best thing for him. And you go to Kinley and you're like, Kinley, I'm so proud of you. And she's like, okay.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
But then you go, Kinley, you did great. Here's a little Hershey's kiss.
Or you give her a hug and you snuggle with her and she just snuggles in and goes, Mom, you're the best mom in the world. Or like she might say something like that. And you're like, that's how she's encouraged. She wants connection. She wants a gift or something. And Logan, those words just fill him up. And so most of the time, if you are interacting with someone who's hurting, you probably know them on a deeper level. And if you don't, a lot of those times, writing a card, sending them a card, or a card with a gift card or in it or something like that will definitely encourage them. Because one, they'll know that someone who they may not know very well took the time to send them a message and send them a card, which is not something that's done a whole lot right now. But if it's someone that you know and are very close with, then are they a words of affirmations person? Are they a gift person? Do they want quality time? Do they want just hugs and that physical touch of having someone to hold on to when they're going through this? You can see that from the people that you know. And if the person that you're caring for is a more touchy-feely person and you're not, you can always get them like a stuffed animal or a blanket, something that they can hold on to. They can have that touch with, even if you're not a touchy-feely person. And
here's another option, not for the touchy-feelies, but for the words of affirmation people, but you're like the biggest introvert, or let's be real, people. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to say, or you're the biggest Eeyore in your life, and you really don't know honestly how to say what you want to say, or if there is even a bright side. Get them a gold star. Send them a sticker. Just send something to say that I was thinking about you, and I wanted to show somehow, some way that I was caring for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always wanted a gold star, whether that was in Sunday school or in school for attendance or saying my Bible verse and things like that. So, especially if they're a millennial, just get them a card and throw a gold star in there.
Or any sticker, really.
Or a sticker, yeah.
Most people just like stickers. I mean, some people don't. Some people have phobias of stickers. Did you know that?
I didn't.
Yeah.
New podcast topic, maybe.
Phobias and the church.
Oh boy. Oh, that one actually might not be challenging, but controversial.
It might be.
Oh boy.
Well, maybe we'll not do that one. No, but I think really honing in on what that person needs. And, sometimes if they're just sick, going out, getting them a can of chicken noodle soup and a Gatorade.
Yep.
Or if they are hurting, inviting them over for dinner.
Yep.
So they're not alone. It could be anything, really.
Yep. I think one of the biggest things, I'm probably telling a family secret here, but my mom taught me this at a young age, mostly from things that she walked through with my grandfather's passing, but it was also wisdom that she had kind of collected over a couple years. Is if somebody's going through a loss of a loved one or something incredibly tragic, usually, generally speaking, especially if they have a faith community, those people are going to be cared for, or the close relatives are going to be cared for pretty well for about the first 2 to 4 weeks after the event, funerals, different things like that. It's about that 6-week mark where grief really becomes real in a lot of people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if the person who passed was somebody's greatest best friend, that other person's life still moves on. But if it's someone really close and it was a loved one to them that they spend a lot of time with, their life is still radically different.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the most unique things that I've heard that came from my mom that I've loved to practice in ministry is that about that 6-week point, I will try to send a card.
Check in on them.
And just check in on them, and then make sure to invite them to go do something. I don't care if they say yes or not, and most times, out of all the times that I've done it, they've said no. And that's great. But I want them to know that I'm not just there in the moment where everyone is there for their grief, but I'm there for them now and whenever they truly need me. Now, if you can't say that you're going to be there whenever they need you, then don't say it.
Yeah.
But being in ministry, Mandy and I have had the opportunity to be in ministry, paid and unpaid, for like the last decade now, which is crazy to think about. But we've been paid and unpaid ministry leaders in different areas, and I've had times where I've taken off my full-time job to travel to be at a hospital with people going through a tragedy, because that's what was required of me in my heart at that moment. Mm-hmm. But check in on people 6 to 8 weeks after your life has gone back to normal. That's when you need to set a reminder, and I know that sounds really corny or weird, but set a reminder for you to check in on them at that time. When your life is now back to normal and you're like, that was an event that happened, but it really didn't impact my life a ton, that's when it's starting to hit them.
Yeah.
That's when reality is starting to sink in, and they probably truly need the most beautiful form of biblical encouragement that they can find.
Yeah. I definitely need to get better in sending messages to people, especially like texting or like over Facebook or whatever. I'm horrible. If you are one of my friends and I've not texted you or messaged you, it's because I'm a horrible person at that. I'm not good at that. And it stinks because I will go, during the week, I'll think about them. Mm-hmm. I won't send a message because I'm horrible at that. And I really have no good excuse for not sending a message. And then I'll see them the next Sunday and I go, or the next time I see them, because it's not always on Sunday, and I just go, man, I was going to text them, or I was going to message them. I don't have time to talk to them right now, or it's not a proper time to talk to them about what's going on, and I don't know how they're doing. I don't know where they're at in their walk with Christ, or if they need more encouragement, because I didn't take the time to message them. Mm-hmm. And so that's one area that I'm definitely wanting to improve on this year, is making sure that I'm intentional and I actually do what I think needs to be done, especially if you care about someone. You need to check in on them.
Yeah, well, let me flip that real quick on you. I had a pastor growing up who at one point called me. I was probably 9th or 10th grade, and said, "Jeff, are you okay?" I'm like literally sitting in the school parking lot getting ready to leave school. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. What's up?" He's like, "I just could not stop thinking about you today. Like, God kept bringing you to my mind, and I didn't know if it was a good thing or if you needed something. He's like, I don't know why you were on my mind all day, but you were, and I needed to call and hear your voice and make sure that you were okay. He listened. He didn't push away the Holy Spirit or that emotion or that person popping up into his head. He followed through. Now, he followed through when it was appropriate because I was in school all day. But I'll tell you what, if you want to be serious about your spiritual life, have your pastor randomly call you scared to death that you're in trouble. And let me tell you, that week I was living right. Like, I was like, okay, what's Satan going to send my way? What? I better read up on all the crazy things. And no, I was just in tune with God a lot more because I knew my pastor was in tune with God because he just listened and followed through on a Holy Spirit's prompting about my life.
Yeah.
How would that change your evangelism or your discipleship?
Or your friendship.
Or your friendship if when somebody came to your mind, you just sent them a quick, hey, you came to my mind, I'm thinking about you, don't know what's going on, I'm praying for you, and let's catch up sometime. Right?
Or call them.
You could even go as far as having a message that you've already written out that you can just copy, paste, and tweak and send so that you don't have to actually think about what to say in that moment. That's not crazy. It might seem crazy, but it's not crazy.
He's really saying that because I have a hard time communicating what I want to say on text and emails and things like that.
Well, because
I can talk it out. No, as you can tell, I can talk it out. No problem.
When you think about them, then all of their history comes back, and then you like. It's not that you can't do it. It's like everything about them starts rushing back, and it's like, I can't cover all that in their text. I can't cover their entire life in a text.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, just have something pre-written out that you can personalize real quick that gets the point across. And the call to action for you is, number one, you're following through on the Holy Spirit's prompting. And number two, if they really want to open up and want to talk to you, they'll say, yeah, let's hang out. Let's catch up.
Yeah.
And it's never been easier in the world to catch up with somebody than today because phone calls are boring, so let's hop on Zoom or let's FaceTime. And criminy, we've even got the technology. You can literally FaceTime somebody and watch a TV show at the same time.
Yeah.
So, like, the technology's here.
Just got to use it.
Just got to use it.
So, with that being said, if you know someone in your life who's hurting, who's grieving, is just going through a rough patch, reach out to them.
Send them a text.
Be a person that's just there with them.
Just be a person, too.
Yeah. And care for them as much as you can. Because that's what God calls us to do.
Don't
encourage one another.
Yep. Exactly. Don't hunt the elephant in the room. Just be another person. And if the elephant comes in the room, you're two people against one elephant.
Well, I was just going to say love on the elephant.
That works, too. I've never seen an elephant other than at a zoo, so.
They're big.
Yeah. They have funny ears. All right, we should probably wind this down.
If you guys have any other topics that you guys want us to discuss, let us know.
Or other unique or good ideas to how to encourage people that has worked in your life, definitely comment below because we need some new ones.
Yeah. It was great to see you guys. See you next time.
See ya.